Hey everyone, Harshel here. Welcome back to part 83 of the Decode Healthcare Explainer series. Today, we are tackling one of the most complex, but honestly absolutely essential areas in medical coding, ICD-10 CM Chapter 15. We're talking pregnancy, childbirth, and the puerperium. We're going to do a really punchy zero-fluff breakdown of the strict coding laws governing maternal charts. So if you've ever, second-guessed whether to use an O code or a standard chapter code, or if you've tripped over the incredibly strict rules for normal deliveries, you are exactly where you need to be.
All right, quick look at the agenda. Our mission today is to master 4 critical areas. We've got the Chapter 15 sequencing override, trimester staging and gestation, the extremely strict O80 normal delivery rules, and finally, the outcome of delivery mandates.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the Chapter 15 sequencing override.
So, here is the absolute golden rule of obstetrics coding. Category O codes, those are the ones ranging from O00 to O9A, they literally override everything. They always take precedence over codes from any other chapter. And this applies whenever a condition complicates a pregnancy, is aggravated by the pregnancy, or is just the main reason for OB care in general. In the medical coding world, Chapter 15 is king. No exceptions.
And this right here perfectly illustrates how a patient's chart physically transforms the second they become pregnant. Let's take type 2 diabetes as an example. On a non-pregnant chart, obviously you'd report an E11 code, right? But on a maternal chart, that E11 code gets completely overwritten. The primary diagnosis has to convert to an O code, specifically O24419 for gestational diabetes, and then it gets paired with a Z3A code for the exact weeks of gestation. The O code is totally in the driver's seat here.
The real crucial point here comes straight from a specific CMS guideline. Basically, unless the provider explicitly writes down that the pregnancy is purely incidental to the encounter, you have to assume the condition affects the pregnancy. It's on the provider to state otherwise. If they don't, you prioritize the Chapter 15 O code. It's a strict compliance law, guys. You just cannot ignore it.
Moving right along to Section 2, trimester staging and gestation.
Listen, in Chapter 15, precision is quite literally everything. You're facing a really strict dual requirement here. First off, the vast majority of Chapter 15 codes demand a 7th character to specify the trimester, so that's first, second, third, or in very rare cases, unspecified. But that's not all. You also have to append a mandatory secondary code from Category Z3A on all maternal records to state the exact gestational age. Missing either of these? Yeah, that's going to trigger an instant claim denial. And trimesters aren't just something we guess at. They are rigidly calculated from the very first day of the patient's last menstrual period. They map out exactly like this timeline you're looking at. The first trimester is less than 14 weeks and 0 days. The second is 14 weeks and 0 days to less than 28 weeks. And then the third trimester is 28 weeks and 0 days right up until delivery actually occurs.
Now here is a massive trap that I see so many coders fall into: the whole concept of completed weeks. According to the official guidelines, completed weeks of gestation refers strictly to full weeks, period. So for provider documents that a patient is at 39 weeks and 6 days, you code it strictly as 39 weeks. Why? Because that 40th week hasn't finished yet. Actually, scratch that. Just remember this simple rule: never, ever round up in obstetric coding.
All right, let's look at Section 3, the strict O80 normal delivery rules.
Code O80 is essentially the unicorn of obstetric coding. You really need to treat these requirements as an absolute unforgiving checklist. Let's run through it. Was it a full-term normal delivery? Yes. Single, live-born, healthy infant? Yes. Were there absolutely zero maternal or fetal complications during the antepartum, delivery, and postpartum phases? Yes. Zero surgical interventions besides a routine episiotomy? Yes. Listen, a single no to literally any of these questions completely throws out the O80 code. To really grasp what invalidates OED, you have to memorize these exact definitions set by CMS. A postpartum complication is defined as anything occurring within the 6-week window immediately following delivery. So if a complication pops up anywhere in this specific time frame during the delivery episode, boom, your OED code is gone.
The second you introduce even a tiny minor complication, say a minor perineal laceration, or if the patient requires a C-section, O80 is out the window. You just strike a line right through it. Instead, you have to pivot over to specific O-series complication codes to accurately describe what happened during the encounter. O80 means perfect, textbook, normal, no exceptions.
And because it's so exclusive, when O80 actually is successfully applied, it stands completely alone as the undisputed principal diagnosis. You can't bump it down to a secondary position, and you absolutely cannot use it in conjunction with any other Chapter 15 complication code. If you have an O80, it leads the entire claim.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 4, Outcome of Delivery Mandates.
This particular CMS guideline establishes a pretty cardinal rule of OB coding. You absolutely must stack a Z37 secondary code on every single maternal chart when a delivery takes place. I don't care if it's a single liveborn, twins, or any other outcome, the maternal chart is totally incomplete without that Z37 category stating exactly what happened at the very end of the pregnancy.
This shows exactly how all these rules interconnect, like a giant puzzle. If you recall our strict checklist for O80, it explicitly requires a single healthy infant. Therefore, if you're coding a perfectly normal O80 delivery, Z37.0, which is for a single live birth, is literally your one and only allowable outcome code. They're a locked pair for sure.
Now, this side-by-side comparison illustrates the absolute hardest boundary in all of OB coding. I really cannot stress this enough, guys. Z37 outcome of delivery codes and Chapter 15 O codes go exclusively on the maternal chart. On the flip side, the Z38 live-born code goes exclusively on the newborn chart. You never ever mix these up.
To reinforce that strict boundary, let's take a quick look at the newborn's chart. The newborn uses category Z38 as the principal diagnosis for their initial birth record. It tells us the place of birth and the type of delivery. But remember, it's assigned only once, at the time of birth, and again, it is never ever placed on the mother's record.
So, knowing these super strict coding boundaries, I want you to think about a tricky scenario for a second. If a patient delivers twins, where exactly does the Z37 outcome code go? Does it go on the mom's chart, the first twins chart, or the second twins chart? What do you think?
Well, if you said the mother's claim, you hit the nail right on the head. Even for twins or multiple births, the specific Z37 outcome code, in this case it would be Z37.2 for twins, both liveborn, stays firmly rooted on the mother's claim to describe the outcome of her delivery. The babies are each going to get their own Z38 code on their respective charts.
So, we've thoroughly unpacked a lot of authoritative rules today. From the sheer power of the Chapter 15 override to the unforgiving strictness of O80, the next step is up to you. Are you ready to apply these rigid standards to keep your coding perfectly compliant on your next maternal chart? Thank you so much for joining me for Part 83 of this Explainer series. Please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Decode Healthcare channel. Up next in Part 84, we are tackling Chapter 16, Certain Conditions Originating in the Perinatal Period. We're going to unpack perinatal versus congenital rules, birth weight, and prematurity staging. It's going to be a good one, so you definitely won't want to miss it. See you then.